Welcome to another episode of Business Talk, a podcast presented by Business West and sponsored by Greenfield Cooperative Bank. I'm Joe Bednar, the editor of Business West, and we have a great guest today. We have Mike Tautznik. He's the former mayor of East Hampton and the current treasurer and board member for CitySpace in East Hampton, a really intriguing project that's happening at the Old Town Hall. Great to have you here on the show.
Well, hi, Joe. Great to be here.
So we have a lot to talk about. We've written about CitySpace quite a bit in the past.
Thank you.
And I know you have recently some pretty big news from the federal government. Tell me about that money that just came in.
Well, we were really happy. Both Senator Warren and Senator Markey, in particular, Senator Markey's office, have been very helpful in understanding our project moving forward, and they were able to get a congressional earmark. There's a new name for it. I don't remember what it is. For $3.5 million to help us fund stage 3 of the project. It's a fairly large project. Just to give you a little bit of history, back in 2003, the city moved from its historic town hall to its current office building. I was mayor at the time, and we had vacated several buildings, sold a couple of them, and collectively, with the city council's input and citizen input, we decided that the old town hall was really something that the city wanted to try to maintain for public purposes. Took a little while, but in 2006, we were able to get an RFP out that was responded to by a nonprofit called CitySpace to use the building for arts and cultural activities. So CitySpace has been operating the building since 2006 and got full control of the building about 4 years ago with a 44-year lease from the city. Needed legislative approval. But from that point forward, we've been responsible for not only operating the building, but also maintaining and improving it for future purposes. Back in 2018, we commissioned an architect to look at a final build out of the building focused on the second floor, which is a very large open hall. Developed some plans, decided that we were going to move forward with that. That entailed improving the utilities, serving the building, including the heating system, adding handicapped access, and then converting the upper hall into a 350-seat entertainment venue. The intention back in 2018 was to try to do this in one shot, but as we saw inflation and as COVID came in, we decided that it just wasn't feasible. And so we broken that project down into 3 phases. The first phase was kind of an invisible phase, improving the infrastructure of the building, heating, new electrical service, the kinds of things you don't see from the street. Currently about halfway through phase 2, which is a 5-stop elevator to make the building fully handicapped accessible. That's fully funded. We've got a great local contractor, Kiter Corporation, who's doing the work. We've had help from a couple of state grants, the city of East Hampton CPA, and some very generous donors. And we've got that project underway. It'll be finished this summer, and then we're going to move into the final design and hopefully execution of the final phase, which is to create that venue on the second floor. That'll be not only entertainment, but it'll also be a place for public gathering, and just a way to celebrate that building's history.
We wrote at length about the project 3 years ago when Business West named Burns Maxey one of our difference makers.
She's
in May 23.
Amazing.
She's the because she spearheaded a lot of this. So at the time, there were a lot of things actually going on already. Tell me about what the first phase has brought as far as I think there's a small theater, incubator space, art space. I mean, tell me what's there now.
Sure. What's there now is some rental space. There's a frame shop who's a kind of our anchor tenant, Big Red Frame. We have a gallery, ECA gallery across the hall from him. And we've developed the rear of the first floor as a venue called the Blue Room. It's a 100-seat venue. We've been operating that since 2011, and that has had all kinds of activities in it. And we also run an artist development program. We call it Pay It Forward, where we seek artists to come in and develop their skills. We provide technical expertise, a stipend, and their obligation is to provide a public performance team. That has been a wonderful opportunity for local artists. It's been good for us to be able to operate that venue because it gives us the sense of how the business will work when we have a larger venue on the second floor. Sure.
Are you having good turnout to some of those performances?
Oh yeah. We partner with the city during their Saturday Art Walk, and we have a big bluegrass up festival there. And it's very that one is really consistent. It happens every month, and it's really well attended. But there's lots of public and private activity going on. We have a calendar on our website, CitySpace, easthampton.org. And generally speaking, this time of year is about the slowest time of year, but come spring, there's usually something there every weekend.
That's nice. So tell me about the importance of developing the upstairs space. You said it's about a 350 um, capacity venue that's being envisioned there. Why is it important for the region as far as how it fits into venues of other sizes that are across?
Yes, it's important for lots of reasons. I certainly talk about the region. The regional fit is that it's the size that isn't readily available here in the region. There are lots of smaller venues, 200 seats and under. There are some really great big venues, big for the region.
Yeah.
But not a lot in the 3 to 500 seat range. And we think that there's a real opportunity to try to tap into some of the artists that move through the valley, actually move through the Northeast to be
Sure.
able to provide an opportunity for that. It's also the kind of space that an up and coming artist might be able to fill.
Mm.
And that's kind of important when you have a show. Whenever you're doing a performance, you want a full house. You want to be able to bring in an audience, to make the audience feel like they're with a big group. And so, bringing a 300 person performance to an 800 seat venue is sometimes disheartening for the artists.
Sure.
But more so, I guess the reason that I'm more involved in it is really it's more immediate effect. Main Street in East Hampton is an historic district. The city has had plans to implement improvements in that in the town. East Hampton Savings Bank, which is a big supporter of ours, just donated the bank building they bought to the library, and the library is moving to Main Street. There's an older building that the city once occupied that is now been purchased and is operated by a collective, and they're a heavy metal group. So I see, my history is volunteering in East Hampton. I was the mayor for quite a while, and I really have been volunteering in East Hampton for about 50 years now. And I see this personally as an investment in my community.
Yeah.
And a way to provide an anchor for that part of downtown. The building is a building that I remember as a child. When I first served as selectman, it was in that building. My first 2/3 as mayor were in that building, and the fabric of the community is really what its citizens make it. And I hope to be a thread in the weaving of that fabric. And I think CitySpace is a big panel in that fabric. And the benefits are going to far outweigh the costs that we're seeing in the immediate town.
It's going to be exciting too. I know venues in Northampton and other places have kind of seen themselves as sort of a stop for artists between Boston and New York. Well, again,
Yeah.
a little smaller than some of the
Yep.
the huge venues, and to have artists of that caliber maybe showing up in East Hampton's got to be exciting for you and other people invested in in the community.
It certainly is. My focus is on the business side of what CitySpace does. So I don't get involved in programming very much. I'm the treasurer. Because I have a familiarity with the building, I'm the building manager. During construction processes, I'm the owner's representative in the construction process. And so my focus is a whole lot more on the bricks and mortar than it is the activity that happens in the building. But we have a wonderful board. You mentioned Burns earlier on. Her leadership has been remarkable. And so it's taken a group of people to be able to make this a success. And I fill a niche role in that group. But we have a very diverse board. There's 12 members. They come from all kinds of backgrounds, many from the arts, others from business. And we all, I think, complement each other on the way that we work with CitySpace. But I just have to say that it takes leadership to be able to be successful, and we have been uh, blessed with Burns's leadership over the years, and it's heartening to me because she worked for me when I was mayor, and now to work for her as our lead is just so satisfying,
Mm.
so satisfying.
You're listening to Business Talk, a podcast presented by Business West and sponsored by Greenfield Cooperative Bank. We're talking today with Mike Tautznik, the former mayor of East Hampton and the current treasurer and board member for CitySpace. Um, how did this is clearly important to you? How did you get involved with CitySpace in the first place, and to the point where you're serving as their treasurer?
Yeah, well, I became familiar with CitySpace when they responded to the RFP, and it's interesting because one of our current board members, who was actually president of CitySpace for its first 10 years or so, um, was involved in the arts as a professor at Smith College. The other founding member was the gentleman who developed the old Stanley Home Products building into what is called Eastworks. That was one of the first commercial redevelopments of the old mills in East Hampton. Um, Followed them very closely, executed a couple of leases with them on the building over the years. And when I left the office back in 2014, I continued to want to do volunteer work. I went to work for a nonprofit called Center Griego Technologies, and spent my final time working there. I'm retired now, and was continued to look for opportunities to volunteer. And the opportunity came when Burns got involved as the president. She reached out and said, our treasurer is looking to move on to do other things. You've got a background. Would you join us? And I immediately said yes.
Kind of going back a little bit, you were East Hampton's first mayor, I believe,
That's
and served in that role for about 17, 18 years.
17.
Um, what are you most proud of from those years, and what are some of the ways maybe the city has kind of evolved during that time?
Um, yeah, it's hard to look back at 17 years of progress and say, well, this was the most important thing.
Sure.
I think overall, I'm really pleased at how the community comes together. Um, I've been involved in East Hampton for a very long time, long before I became an elected official. I was a elected town meeting member, elected board of selectmen, mayor. But prior to that, I was also involved in volunteering for lots of different opportunities and organizations. And East Hampton used to kind of be its own worst enemy. There were a lot of folks in the community would diss the community. They had nothing better to do but say bad things about East Hampton. That was kind of one of the first things that I tried to tackle when I became mayor, is to try to understand why that happened and how do you change it. And really, it turned out that people just want to be heard. We did a lot of public outreach opportunities. We had several citywide meetings, everyone invited on a Saturday, to try to come up with a planning process that fit everyone, or at least that everyone felt they had some input. Uh, so I guess I'm most proud about the way the city feels about itself now, as opposed to the way it did 30 years ago. Beyond that, we built a public safety complex. We got into modern office buildings. We built a couple of schools. There's a lot that I can look at, and I guess I can't really say that there's one thing that stands out
Sure.
against the rest. I do have a love for old buildings, and part of why I'm involved with CitySpace is because this old town hall was built in 1869, has a piece of my heart. It really is a beautiful old building. Um, that needs a purpose, and we found that purpose serving the public in lots of ways. I mean, we have community events there. we mentioned the Blue Room earlier on. That's become a focal point for lots of activity, both public and private. And we've got a frame shop. He was our initial tenant. He's still there. And the galleries, the opportunity for people to come into the building. We do tours. Anytime there's any activity in the building that involves the public, we generally have members of the board there to take them upstairs to look at what the future could be. So there's an excitement about being involved with CitySpace. I think that especially now that I'm retired, it fills a nice piece of my life.
Speaking of filling pieces of your life, I know you said you've been kind of volunteering for 50 years, and I know you're still do what you can. Outside of CitySpace, are there other organizations you're actively involved with right now?
Well, I do a lot of volunteering when other organizations need some help. I think most recently, the Nashawanek Pond Committee and their nonprofit Friends of Nashawanek Pond run a fundraising event called Winterfest in East Hampton. And I've been doing, that's been running 11 or 12 years now, and I do the community fire every year there. It's an opportunity for folks to warm up on a cold winter day. It's right next to where the polar plunge is. So a lot of the folks that are brave enough to jump into icy waters come over and warm by the fire. Nice. And it continues to give me a chance to keep connected with the community, keep connected with the people, to understand kind of how they think about the community, what's on their mind. And that helps to drive my discussion with lots of other folks. I'm pretty outgoing. I'm pretty proud of East Hampton. I'm pretty proud of all of the organizations that I've gotten involved with over the years. I don't know if it shows or not, but people seem to be willing to tell me things that help me understand and maybe help me move the needle a little bit.
That's fantastic. It seems East Hampton's identity in some ways has become more tied to the arts culture over the years. Yeah. And do you see that? And I guess overall, what do you feel like the identity and the strengths of the city are?
Well, the tying to culture and the arts was deliberate. Back in 1998, we started doing long range planning. Started looking at the mill buildings in a very different way than the town did. So a lot of communities look at older buildings and they see blight and they see problems and they see, what are we going to do? And how do we get more industry? We took a little different route. We looked at these buildings as assets. We looked at the community as asset. And how do we leverage the assets? Yeah, East Hampton has just been a community that has become aware of its purpose, I think, in the arts. The idea that arts are just for entertainment, I think, is past. We look at the arts as an economic engine. The mills needed tenants. Mill space is pretty inexpensive. So it attracts tenants that maybe can't afford to be in downtown Springfield or to be in a Class A space. And so from the perspective of utilizing older mill buildings, you become an attraction. And the attraction isn't just, it's an expensive space, but you've got people. And bringing people into the community brings traffic to your downtown that supports local businesses. East Hampton is also very centrally located, where you look at the Northeast and you look at this corridor between Boston and New York. East Hampton's on the way. The idea that East Hampton can become the center of things is not far-fetched. So helping the community utilize its long-range planning, implement the goals that it believes it's set for itself, becomes kind of everyone's responsibility. And there's a lot of folks in East Hampton. I mean, I'm visible. So you see me and this guy volunteers or whatever. But I'm not alone. Nothing happens by an individual. It's always a group. And East Hampton comes together. That's great.
We're just about out of time, but I don't want to leave without asking you, are there things that people can do to support the CitySpace project in any way to kind of help bring it to fruition? Tell me about that.
Certainly. Well, we are looking to fund the third phase, the final phase of this project, which is to create this 350 seat space. We've been very lucky in getting the support of the federal government through Senator Markey and Senator Warren. We've been successful in getting some state funding through grants. But the real push, I think now, is to talk to the private citizens, to talk to the individuals in the community and in the region about the importance of what CitySpace can do with this building and how this building and its revitalization can draw more economic activity into the valley.
Sure.
And so we're certainly looking for individuals to help us to respond to our fundraising activities. And you're going to see a lot of that coming up. We have a fundraising committee that is actively looking at developing the campaign for this third phase. We could use an angel. We certainly could use an angel.
We're out of time. I so appreciate you talking to me about this project. I just find it really intriguing. I've written about it before, so I'm glad to bring some more attention to it. And I appreciate you coming on the podcast.
Well, thank you for the opportunity.
And thank all of you for watching and listening to Business Talk, a podcast presented by Business West and sponsored by Greenfield Cooperative Bank. I'm Joe Bednar, the editor of Business West, and we'll see you next time.